Today, I would like to talk about a topic and hopefully help enlighten some people out there on how I believe the world truly works, okay? Now, in school and as we grow up, there is a certain narrative that is taught to us and is pretty much drilled into our brains by our parents, society, school, the media, so be it, what you may want to call it. But this general narrative, I want today to try to instill inside your brain the fact that it is only designed to keep you in the parameters of control. It is only designed so that you cannot be free. Now, in school, you were probably taught that you need to work hard and you need to try and you need to find your special skill and a career path and a plan forward. Take action, go through the school system, graduate college with a doctorate, and go on to make your typical 100 to 200K a year lifestyle if you're absolutely lucky, not suffering student debts, and you are actually capable and chosen for the position in the first place. Now, albeit in these career paths, whether it be a doctor or a lawyer or a technician, you're still working 40 to 60 hours a week. Now, I want to just draw a small comparison to the medieval times and the same labor to wage ratio that the peasants of medieval times under the English monarchy. Okay, guys, I have a quick comparison here for you to ponder for a little while. Did you know that medieval peasants in England had an average of 150 to 180 days a year of work, while it was seasonal, and the summer days typically required about a 16-hour days in, and other seasons would be about 8 hours. Now, if you just draw a quick comparison to the average working class 60-hour full-time job who is actually able to support a household, you'd be needing to work a 60-hour job making at least 20 plus, maybe 25 plus an hour, just to break even on the bills and wages of the household, not accounting for having a child. You would be needing to work 60 hours a week, a total of 3,000 hours and 3,120 hours a year. A peasant worked 1,620 hours a year. Your average time off would be, accounting for your weekends, if you get weekends off and you don't work some weekends or at least one day, you would have an average of 26 days off a year. I want you people to just take a moment there and think about that. If you have a full-time job, even if you're working 40 hours a week, you're still having your day taken up, the daytime. So it just means you're working less hours. That's the same amount of days. You only get 26 days off a year. And for the rest of the time, the rest of the 340 some odd days, they give you a week back in exchange. A week of your life back in exchange, just to break even on your bills. Meanwhile, a peasant had their home and their food given to them for free, and they were working a lot less time off. It also says they got 50 days off a year plus holidays. So if we're just going to draw some average conclusions here, I would say that the modern day slave labor job is actually far worse than a peasant's, and they're rubbing it right in your face, and everybody seems to agree with this narrative. Let's look at some of these jobs they had. Agriculture, tending to animals, maintenance work, household tasks, building roads, seasonal jobs, and harvesting. I'm sorry, but this is sounding a lot like construction, grocery jobs, city work jobs, and seasonal jobs. Would you look at that? It doesn't look like they have changed the system much over the past, millennia. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be changing anytime soon. So next time Hollywood tries to sell you on the narrative that peasants were basically slaves who worked day in and day out doing backbreaking work, let me tell you, that's not how a society that conquered most of the Western world works. Slaves do not work for nothing. And if we just want to draw some conclusions from that to today's society, well, you can see the collapse of society happening right now in real time. Gas prices are at an all-time high. Okay, it doesn't seem like anybody wants to be on either side of the political spectrum, and division is more inevitable than ever. So sooner or later, the system has to change or be changed by the environment around it. Now, I would like to shift the topic slightly to what I would like to get to talking about today, if you guys would just give me. Now, back to the dualistic comparisons that I was making. When I was growing up as a child, I don't know what it was, but I've kind of always seen the world this way. I have valued my freedom more than most people, more than other people would tell you to in this world, and I've just always had a different mindset when it came to this sort of thing. Not only that, when I started working and I started having my first jobs, it was difficult for me to keep the jobs because under any circumstance I couldn't see myself ever being there forever. I mean, it's just like, it might as well have been a fairy tale. I'm gonna work at the grocery store stocking stuff. Like it's not gonna happen. So my heart wasn't in it, and employers, they do not like that. They want somebody who is so determined to please the system that they will just about do anything to do so for scraps of wages. And I could just never see myself doing this. As a kid, in school, I had a hard time focusing in class as well. And I didn't really see the point of being taught like this. Things like book reports, having to speak in front of the class and explain a story, a fictional story at that. I mean, what are we doing here? It's a fictional. So what did you? It's a fictional story. When is it really going to apply in life? It's just kind of stupid. What we were learning there was a indoctrination, how to blend into society, how to get along with people, and how to thrive in a hierarchy, which is like a kind of immature high school hierarchy. And you will see that these things apply in all areas of life as you go on. People do not hire people that are most fit for the job or most qualified. They hire people who are pretty qualified that they like. They hire people that they like the faces of. They hire people that are like them. They hire people that they know. They're not going to allow themselves to just work with some random person, and that's why society is utterly flawed. You have humans in charge making petty human decisions instead of efficiency. Not only that, but it suppresses free thinking and the power of being yourself at all. I mean, it just completely and utterly sucks the independence and soul right out of you. And we can see the uprise in people starting to wake up and realize that this society and system isn't getting them anything. It's not fulfilling to them. The American dream is dead. You cannot afford to buy a house with hard work, and even if you are extremely qualified in your position, you may never be chosen to thrive in the society that is created. You see, they don't want free thinkers. They don't want people who are themselves, and they certainly don't want somebody who's actually the best at the job, because that person will run the higher up out of their job. So it's their job to make sure that what they've created is sustained, and they'll do anything to accomplish that. People who are making tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour have the intellect and the know-how to create these systems to make sure that nobody ever changes them. Now, when I was growing up in school, I did a pretty gutsy move. If I look back on it now that I'm 30. To tell your teachers straight to your face, straight to their face, you know, I do not care about this program at all. I do not care about school. I do not care what you think. I know what I know, and I don't care what anybody or any society tells me about not having a high school diploma. I will find something to do. I will be successful regardless of what you say. And I didn't feel like doing schoolwork. It bored me out of my mind. Sitting in a room, and we had a block schedule at one of my high schools, which meant you weren't in class for an hour and a half. You were in a class for 2.5 hours. 4 classes a day, and you would rotate 4 classes the next day. Okay? And it bored me out of my mind. And for somebody who just never had any faith in the programs or systems in place, in the first place, this was just basically soul-crushing for me. But I made the most of it, you know? But to look your teachers dead in their eyes and say, you don't know what you're talking about. And I had no idea what I was talking about, but I had a belief. I had a belief and a mindset that I believe I could overcome anything. And that is a perfect touch on what I would like to get to talking about today. Okay, so what I wanted to say. In this society, what they do not want to tell you is that the power of your mind is an incredible thing. there are wavelengths, vibrations, and an electromagnetic field that are emitting from our body at a constant rate all the time. If you have certain spectrometers and tools, you can actually see that the body is made of light. Now, Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, they put it right there in front of our eyes, and they expect you to not know what that means. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Okay, so energy is mass. So all of the 3D solid objects that you see are illusionary projections of light. Everything is just energy. There are only illusionary projections, our senses, and our three-dimensional understanding of the world that is collapsing the wavelengths into solid objects. Your consciousness is collapsing reality into solid reality. So essentially, your mind does very really, very scientifically, physically, it does affect reality. It doesn't just affect reality. They don't want you to know. It creates reality. So it all starts in the mind. I mean, if you think about it, an idea is a very strange thing. This concept comes from the astral into a physical person's body, their brain, and then they outwardly move in the 3D and create something that's never been seen. Somebody thought, when they looked at mountains, why isn't there a way to go through the mountain? And they created a tunnel through a fucking mountain, bro. Like, that's... And people did this way back in the day. They tunneled through a mountain. They say you can't move mountains. He's like, well, you don't need to. I mean, that is just wild to think about. And I say this to hopefully try to enlighten some people here today. Your vibration and your mindset is in tandem responsible for everything that you do in this world, and it shows. So a good healthy mindset equals a good healthy life and a good healthy body. Your body and your mind are one in the same. They're connected, via the body, the flesh. That's why when you don't move around and you don't move your body, the excess energy oftentimes tends to build up into unwanted thoughts and anxieties, which is why people often find solace in exercise. They find therapeutic sense of healing in working out, and it's really important to do. So just something to think about there. Now, in the movie The Matrix, Morpheus has a very interesting talk with Neo when they are fighting each other as a training mock session in the substrate. He tells him, "Do you think me being faster than you or stronger than you has anything to do with the muscles or the tendons in my body?" And Neo doesn't really understand how to answer that. And what Morpheus was saying was, it it wasn't his physical might that was allowing him to overcome Neo. It was his mind. It was his soul. It was his belief system. It was his belief. Morpheus knows that he's an agent. You know, he's an agent in the Matrix, and he has a agent-like powers in the Matrix. You know, he knows that he is close to becoming the one, but Morpheus does not believe that he's the one, so he can never become the one. Neo has an open mind to the concept. You know, he at one point he doesn't even believe he will be the one. But once once Neo starts to believe, you hear that famous line by Morpheus, he's starting to believe. Which is just so cool. I feel like you can have that happen in your own life. This is what I am trying to enlighten you of today. Why do you guys think that there are people who are beautiful and great at singing, and they never become successful in the singing career? It's their belief. It's their mind isn't allowing them to think of them in this creator sense. I want to enlighten you guys here today to realize that you're creators. We're not meant to be slaves. We're not meant to have our creative minds sapped and energy sapped 8 to 10 hours a day, 40 to 60 hours a week at some job that frankly doesn't care if you exist or not. Okay, that's just not healthy for anybody. I have felt this way ever since I've been a child, and something is calling me to try to tell other people about it, try to help hopefully enlighten them, and try to uplift the collective consciousness of the world, of 3D reality, Earth here in time and space. So I just want you guys to believe truly that you're a creator and that you can just do whatever you want. People told me that I couldn't do anything because I don't have a high school diploma, and I was just like, it just doesn't really matter, you know? I didn't care about high school. It was so boring to me, and now I know why. I know why it's been hard for me to keep a regular job. I know why, you know, all of these signs have pointed me to here throughout my whole life. And people have always told me, you know, I was either, they wanted me to be, they've always told me I could be a comedian, or I've heard anchor man. People always say that I have such an eccentric personality or something, but I'm just being myself. I just want other people to realize that being yourself, your authentic self, it's like the most valuable thing today in your society, becoming a creator. Nobody can be you, alright? And a great way to monetize this is through a personal brand. So personal branding is going to be the future of economics here in America and throughout the world. A personal brand is you getting paid to exist, and it's just the best way to exist. And that's how it should have always been, you know. What did the monarchs say back in Victorian England? That God bestowed this essentially position upon them. They only were nobles because they believed that they were nobles. They were only royalty because the royal family believes that they're royalty. It's so instilled in their brain that it collapsed into 3D reality, and now we call them the English monarch, you know. We call them Prince Harry and the princess, or sorry, the Queen of England. Yet these are just titles. They're just things that people believe. And that's what I'll leave you with, you guys, today, okay?